What is going on, everyone? Griffin here, coming at you with some chalk gameplay, and today we're going to be talking about speed and toughness. What happened to speed and toughness? Let's head over and check it out. So, as you can see here, this is balance changes for speed and toughness. So I'm just going to read the blurb and then we'll get into it. When we introduced speed and toughness, our intention was to create variance between rogues in active combat. In hindsight, we didn't do enough to properly support this, as it became an esoteric stat that made combat interactions difficult to maintain mentally. Additionally, with the existence of other perks that affect those same stats, it created another layer of complexity that further confused and frustrated our players. There was also some functional complications with how they functioned. As such, we currently feel we can accomplish stronger rogue identity through other solutions, which you will see below. Therefore, speed and toughness has been removed from all rogues. All of them. Speed and toughness is gone. So what does this mean for Rogue Company? What does this mean for the rogues? What does this mean for rogue identity? What does this mean moving forward? So this is going to be a little bit less of like a balancy kind of conversation and more of like just conversational from my perspective. Speed and toughness was something that I very much liked. I very much enjoyed. It was something that it did provide uniqueness to the rogues inherently, because you had some rogues that were faster than others. You had some rogues that were tougher than others. You had some rogues that, you know, have access to certain things that feed directly into, like, you know, their kits and everything, like their perk loadouts and things like that. So you had a lot of this stuff that was currently going on whenever they introduced speed and toughness. And Pretty Hair at the time was like, we're going to introduce speed and toughness as another knob to tweak, you know, and all this blah, 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 blah. And it was that, but no knobs were tweaked. All they did was they went in there and they adjusted the toughness from 5% per pip down to 3% per pip, and then they like reduced the toughness on maybe one or two of the rogues, and that was it. It never got touched after that. It was just speed and toughness just simply existed for the fact that it just existed. And that's fine. It's perfectly fine for them to put this system into place and into effect. And if it's perfect and everybody is okay with it, then don't touch it. But there's a lot of people out there that were like, well, I didn't really like speed and toughness. I don't really like speed and toughness. I wish that they would remove it. I wish that they would this. I wish that they would that. And I get that. Whenever you're fighting against an anvil that's got full armor and 5 toughness and bulletproof, like, it does make for a very aggravating encounter, to say the least. But that's where it's like, okay, if you're playing with a squishier, faster rogue, then why are you like plowing straight into an anvil? Like, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you try to take his armor away from a range and then move in whenever you get his armor off? Because you're going to be able to move faster than he is. You're going to be able to maneuver around him faster than he will. Like, he has shields and C4. If you have Semtex or, you know, incendiary grenades, then you're going to be able to like maneuver around him and be able to position yourself way better than you currently are. It's one of those things where it's like, speed and toughness created an environment for people to play smarter, but the people just didn't play smarter. They wanted to play the way that they wanted to play Rogue Company. And that's fine. Like, I completely get that, and I completely agree with that. It's your experience, play it the way you want to, but it introduced this idea of like this tactical aspect, kind of bringing it back into the game. People didn't want that. They wanted run and gun. They soon realized that, like, oh, these characters with this amount of armor, with this amount of toughness, blah, 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 are going to beat these rogues with this amount of toughness and this amount of speed and blah, blah, blah. Like, but it doesn't have to be that way. You have to play smarter. You have to be able to position yourself better. Like, that's where it all comes down to. People don't want that, and I get that at the end of the day. Like I said, it never got touched. It never got tweaked. It never got adjusted. It should have been the second pip in the line of pips as the baseline. It should have been 3. You should have had characters that were astronomically faster than other characters. You should have rogues that are astronomically more powerful and more tankier than other characters. If you want to give identity, that is absolutely one way to do so. And with them removing speed and toughness, like we've seen it in a lot of these other, you know, we've seen it with the changes for the perk loadouts for the rogues that are coming down the line, that like it makes sense why these changes are actually happening. It makes sense why they're removing speed and toughness. Do I want to see it gone? Not really. I mean, like I said, I do like the system. I think that it adds a system to it, but I think that like there could have been some type of visual representation in game to show the player like, oh, this rogue has a toughness of this, or whether it be something on the HP bar, whether it be the way that the character, like the enemy characters are outlined, whether it be some type of visual representation like that gives you some type of like, oh, hey, this is a thing and like this is happening right here. Also, it doesn't help anything that you don't have any idea what any of the rogues' perks are that you're playing against. So you could be playing against an anvil and you have no idea other than like the visual representation of what the armor is, that, hey, like he's got armor. You don't know if he's got bulletproof. You don't know if he's got replenish or life drain or anything like that. You have no way to check, like factually check what perks they have access to, which I think is a huge loss in my opinion. You should be able to go in there and see exactly what people are buying and prioritizing so that you have an idea of how to play against these specific rogues. And with the toughness thing, like it's very interesting because a lot of people were like, well, just remove the damage negation, like the damage reduction side of it, and just extend the health bars out. That would have been like a perfect fit. Like, let's say the baseline rogue would have had 100 HP. And as you go up, depending on how that thing scales, it gives X amount of HP onto the HP bar. That way, like, if you're playing against an anvil that has, a 5-star toughness, their HP bar might be 125 or 130 or 145 or whatever it is. But that way, at least there's some type of visual representation there for you to be able to rationalize this. And for speed and toughness, is it something that's going to be gone forever? I don't know. I don't know what the developers are deciding to do at the end of the day. But like I said, it's just one of those things where it's like, it was a cool idea. It was a very interesting and unique idea. But the team that set it up originally just kind of threw it in there, made minor tweaks like a week or two after it came out, and nobody ever touched it again, and it frustrates players. And I get that it frustrates players. There wasn't anything put into the game to explain how the speed and toughness works to begin with. Like, if you didn't actively follow the game, then you're like, well, why am I shooting X rogue and it's doing X amount of damage? Well, they've got an X amount of toughness. What does that even mean? And it's like, well, let me explain it to you. Like, there was nothing to tell you that. There was no visual indicator. There was none of that stuff. And like for the speed side of things, like, I mean, it felt good to play faster rogues, but it didn't feel as good to play faster rogues as it did to play with tankier rogues. I mean, just like whenever you play a game where you're consistently getting shot behind cover and around walls and stuff like that, like, it doesn't matter how fast you are. If the server latency is going to be terrible, you can't outrun that. On their screen, if they shoot you, and if on your screen you're 3 miles behind this wall and nobody should be able to see you and you still get hit with it, what can you do at that point? There's no amount of speed or toughness that's going to do anything. Well, the toughness will do something about it, but the speed won't do anything about it. So that's why I don't think we've seen a lot of people actually talk about the speed side of things, because at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really contribute or take away from it. It's just something different fundamentally. So I don't know what they're going to do going forward. What I would suggest doing moving forward is, I mean, just if you want to increase the identity of the rogues, then not all the rogues should have the same base HP. So rework the toughness system into some type of an HP thing. Like bulletproof, maybe rework it to where instead of it reducing X amount of damage, then it just increases your HP bar by X amount, depending on what the perk calls for. Like, I think if you simplify everything enough to where it's like, oh, they have this perk or they have that perk because only this is happening and only that is happening, then I think that would make things a lot easier for players to understand, especially new players coming into the game. If there's some type of visual representation where you're shooting someone and on one round you're doing 20 damage per bullet and on the next round you're only doing 18 or 16 damage per bullet, then there absolutely needs to be some type of an explanation for that that the players can easily reference to know what's going on. You can't see that they have bulletproof. You can't see that they have access to some of these perks. So there has to be something that gives. I think at the end of the day, the bullet damage should be the bullet damage should be the bullet damage all across the board. If I pick up an HRM and I shoot someone in the body with it from 10 meters away, it should do the same amount of damage across the board to every single rogue. If you're going to give them things that negate damage, then just add it to their HP bar or to their armor bar or a separate bar on top of everything. That way it makes sense and it's easily communicated to the player, to everyone on the team, the whole 9 yards. Or make it to where we can actually go in and look at what the enemy team is purchasing as far as their weapons, perks, gadgets, the whole 9 yards. Like, it works for other games. Why can't it work for Rogue Company? Why can't I see what the enemy team's picking and what they're using? What are you losing from being able to do that? I don't think that you're losing anything. I don't care what people know that I have access to. I don't care what people know, like how I buy perks and how I prioritize weapon upgrades and things like that. I don't care. Even in a ranked environment, and I would say even in a competitive environment, who cares? Like, it all comes down to player performance, right? At least you know going into that match what you're going to be running into. At least you'll know, like, oh, I'm going to run into an anvil that has armor. Well, maybe we can, like, I don't know, use an Umbra Spider or something to just tick the armor away from him. Not down him, just to get rid of the armor, because maybe we don't have a team cop that has shredder rounds. Or, whatever. Insert any type of scenario here. I think that if they're going to streamline everything for veteran and newer players, they're going to have to do something like that to streamline everything all across the board 110%. Removing speed and toughness is the first step in that, I feel, and it makes sense why they're doing it. Now they can put things in the game like perks and different ways for your characters to interact and match that gives them these benefits of the speed and toughness system. So at the end of the day, I think they know what they're doing. I just think that it could be even simpler. It could be even better. And hopefully that they will look at these factors moving forward to see exactly what they need to do. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like I said, I wanted this to be a little bit different. I wanted to be like an actual conversational piece on it because it is kind of a substantial change. And it's a change that I don't necessarily agree with, but I understand where they're coming from by making this change. But be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Also, be sure to check that description for links to Facebook, Discord, and Twitter. Those are the places to contact me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, then consider hitting that join button to become one of the 256 crew members. Lastly, on Thursdays from 8 until 11 p.m. Central Time, Sundays from 10 a.m. until we get tired, I will be streaming here on YouTube. So if you're interested and available, please feel free to stop by and say hello there. Thanks for watching, guys.